Feeling nervous, actually.
This is the biggest tournament of the year, so it's okay to play tough courses.
It's one of the last pieces that I need to, I think, achieve in terms of like tournaments to win.
I love that it's 5 rounds on a grueling course. I think that's awesome. I think that's exactly what we need.
Some of the holes should be changed to be better for at least the top 50 of us.
I'm extremely motivated. I think, one, my son is something he hasn't seen me win. I haven't won since he's been born. So I want to win being a dad. And then secondly, I think having disc golf taken away for such a long time, I didn't like it. I felt like I was always good at maybe critiquing or tweaking courses to make them a little bit better, making holes a little bit better, and finding ways to challenge the players as the game grew.
I do love New London. I think it's a course that really reminds me the courses we have back home and where I feel very comfortable.
When I designed that course, I wanted it to feel like, you have 6 throwable open-ish holes, 6 wooded, extremely wooded, and then 6 moderately. And I think we accomplished that there. I just don't think we have that kind of challenge on tour, and that shot shaping and that having to stay focused on literally every shot.
I like it. It's technical, but long technical. It's a requirement like distance.
It reminds me of Northwood Black. It's a little bit longer and not quite as tight, in that it just forces you to honestly just stay in the fairway and club down and be smart with your shots. The par 5s, there's 3 par 5s in a 4-hole stretch on the front 9, and I think it really forces you to be very strategic.
Easily one of my top 5 favorite courses, very reminiscent of Jackson. It's such a neat course because kind of right in the middle there, you have the shots where you need to go big and you pull out the distance driver. But every shot after that, you're just playing for the middle. And so whatever discs that I'm feeling confident will get me to the middle of the fairway, those are the shots I'm going to be throwing. The fairways are just so cool. Once you hit them, there's nothing in the way. So if you stay in the fairway, you're going to have a good look at the basket. I think that's what makes a really good course. We see that in Europe. We see that in a couple courses around the country. But if you're off the fairway, that's where it gets punishing.
I think the unique part about that course is it's a wooded course, but you're having to throw drivers. Like a lot of wooded courses, you just think, oh, okay, just pull out my mid-range putter maybe. Like you're having to rip drivers on a lot of these par 4s. You're throwing driver and sometimes driver again. So you don't have the luxury just to disc down just because it's a tunnel shot or it's a long hole. I mean, you got hole 3, I think, is like a 1,000-foot par 4 where you're having to throw 2 drivers for sure.
You're in the woods, but they have fairways to where you can shape a disc. And I don't feel like that's too common when you're in the woods. You kind of just got to hit a line and hope you get it to where you're trying to go. But something like New London, the fairways are maybe 20, 30 feet wide, but you're throwing it 400, 500 feet through the woods and shaping it and using the entire fairway and trying to keep it from landing back in the woods. And I just think that's like such a beautiful shot that we're able to do. And just being in the woods, it just feels like disc golf still. Sometimes when you come out to a golf course, you kind of get to air it out, but you feel like you're just throwing in a field.
I'd say it's a mix between the Monster and WR Jackson, which are like 2 of my favorite courses, so that's pretty fun. There's only, I think, a couple holes that are actually super tightly wooded out there. A lot of them, you're just in the woods, throwing through these kind of wide fairways. I think it's all about just advancing down the fairways, especially on like something like hole 2.
Power shots and then having to control the way that they land. I just think that's the most beautiful shot in disc golf. Throwing straight is the most challenging shot in disc golf. So if there's a way to put those 2 together, I felt like that's really what this course is about. And distance can help you on this course if you want to really push the fairways, but each hole kind of has designated landing areas if you want. And what I think is very unique is I think I throw about 11 or 12 fairways or slower off the tees.
Hyzer flip putter, mid-range shots that Paul's really good at. So I think he definitely showcases his skills when it comes to the design. So that's for sure. But
New London is really cool. So it's technical, but very fair. You need almost every shot shape to do well out there. So that's been really fun to kind of get creative with the lines. Some opportunities for eagles, very scoreable, but if you get off your line, definitely punishing.
If I get off the fairway, just get back to the fairway at all costs.
I just think when we're throwing curveballs is really a way to challenge us. And I think these courses are really going to show, every element of the game. And you're going to have a very well-rounded game. You can't just be a specialist to come out here and win this week.
A 1 par 5 for sure that I'm not pulling out anything besides the putter. And so it's just all placement and OB. And so OB, even on that course, there's OB on 80% of the holes, and out here it's 100% of the holes. Out there you just have the woods in addition to the OB. Here it's pretty much just out of bounds.
There's certainly some Nate Heinold flair out there with some tight OB, but I think the course is very fair.
Some of the holes should be changed to be better for at least the top 50 of us. I'm not talking about like a lot of holes. I'm talking about one hole, especially hole 13. I feel like you have to throw like pretty much like 350 to make the island. I think that one pretty much a little bit ridiculous for me.
I can clear the OB. I think it's a very challenging hole for some FBO. As I heard, it's unreachable. So, yeah, thankfully I'm not the course designer.
My entire design philosophy has always been to punish bad shots and reward good shots. And on a golf course, it's impossible to do without out of bounds, to be honest. I wanted to make it a second shot course. A lot of the first shots on the par fours and the par fives are not that challenging. They're hard, but it's the second shot where I pinch them off. And so I think you'll hear players say, I'm throwing a putter off the tee and then distance driver for a second shot. That really was what I was going for, is to make them really think about it instead of just blasting off hole one. If you club down but then go more aggressive on the second shot, I think you're going to find the benefit.
But I'm throwing distance driver a lot on second or third shots, which isn't something that's very common in the courses we play today. But I feel like that's very common in the European style of courses.
Mcbeth at 69.
I just told myself, you got to will this one in there. Whatever you have, just will it in there.
This man is unbelievable. This is what athletes live for. This is the moment.
New London's in my top 10 courses ever, so I'm excited to play that one, which I think helps a lot. This course out here at Ivy Hill definitely suits my game a little bit better. In case I'm a little bit off, I can still get the birdies, where at New London, if you're off, you're going to be taking bogeys.
Definitely a very challenging course here. I think probably one of the hardest FBO layouts we have played, just because of the distances and the OBs, which are near the baskets. For example, on hole 12, I think it's like 155 or something downhill. It's for me, it's basically a max distance shot. I was like 5 meters away from basket, then 6 meters away from basket, then both were OB.
First impressions, the first practice round, I was not a fan. I did not like the course. Really long, and some of the OBs seemed a little sketchy. But after playing it, I think I've played it 4 or 5 times at this point, and I'm a huge fan now. There's very specific landing zones that you have to hit, shots you have to be very careful, a lot of scary shots. And I think there's 3 holes that are a bit too hard, where most of the field is going to take par. With the exception of 2 or 3 holes, I think this place is amazing.
What's kind of unique and difficult at the same time with these courses are there's definitely birdies you almost have to get. And it kind of adds that little extra pressure because you have a lot of like easy holes and a lot of really hard holes and no like medium holes. And so it really tests your kind of mental fortitude to get those easy birdies and then play smart and safe on the harder holes.
13 is pretty much like, I feel like I just have to throw the disc in front of me and then walk to the drop zone.
Yeah.
Why I'm not even throw when I'm not even gonna make it?
I think a lot of people feel like it unfairly favors the long distance throwers. And there are definitely some holes where I think if we end up with a little bit of wind or a little bit of like wet tee pads, there are going to be players who just straight up can't carry the OB. And I do think I think both courses a little bit favor longer throwers.
Someone may say, I don't like this hole, someone doesn't like this hole, but I look at the raw data and then I can take the data from our 990 rated players, our FBO players, and I can reverse engineer what a 1040 rated player should shoot on a normal day. And so certainly the subjective stuff, if someone says that basket's too tough or this hole's too easy, I can feel that out. But I look at the hard data. What's the distance? What's the scoring averages? What was the conditions? Because we have hundreds and hundreds of rounds out here that were sanctioned data that I could use to tweak the layout.
I can't think of another course, even when we played 4, 5, 6 courses at World Championships, where 2 were better than these 2 that we have in front of us. The closest might be European Open this year when we finally played a second course, but I think Ivy kind of blows away the beast.
This is the biggest tournament of the year, so it's okay to play tough courses.
I love that it's 5 rounds on a grueling course. I think that's awesome. I think that's exactly what we need.
I think that's good, though. I think Worlds shouldn't just be a test of your skills. It should be a test of your fitness and your mental fortitude and just like your grit. And so I think it's actually a great course to have Worlds at. And then, yeah, on the physical side of things, it's a hike. It's probably like we usually think of the toboggan as like our biggest hike of a course. And I think this rivals it.
I feel like this court is harder than Great Lake course, like 5 times harder.
This elevation in some areas is bigger than what we see at Toboggan. I don't have baskets at Toboggan on that kind of slope on hole 10.
I'm kind of like some of the par fours, I'm toning down to where I can land a little bit more on a flat spot instead of getting an extra 100 feet and then you're running up on a downslope trying to go back up. It's super awkward. So I'd rather land 50, 100 feet back and have a nice flat run up and going up a hill and with a nice flat run up instead of trying to run up downhill and throw uphill. It's just really awkward on the body control.
Ivy Hill, it's fun to bomb a disc downhill. Expect to go OB a few times and be okay with it.
Be out of bounds, and I think we use that effectively to create a very challenging course, but I do think it's very fair.
You're going to hit a lot of trees. You're going to find a lot of out of bounds, and you're going to be challenged by so many players this week.
This course is a beast for sure. I think it's just, obviously the length, but then you also have you have some downhill holes, so some holes play shorter than the actual distance, but then you got the other way around where you have some holes may say 500 feet, but it's straight up a hill. It plays like 800 feet. If you want to become world champion, you got to be able to adapt to the conditions and deviate from your game plan. You can't just make a game plan and expect all the conditions to be the exact same as your practice rounds.
If you can make people think and not just have them blast, if you can make them think about where to land, I think you've done a good job as a designer.
Hole 17, where I just go for the par. I will lay up and then go over the water because I don't think it's worth the risk. The OB behind the basket is so close, so even if I clear the water and miss all the trees, then I might still end up in the OB. So this is, I think, probably the only hole where I play for par.
There's a couple holes that, one, aren't worth going for. 17's a little bit weird. I honestly still don't really know the play on that hole. If I'm having a good round, I might just lay up, but I might also just go for it and hope I stick the island. But I think I have a pretty good game plan for the rest of the course. Obviously, tonight I'm going to look at the caddy books and stuff like that and make sure I know all the rules. I know there's a lot of drop zones out here, so got to make sure, that might affect the game plan a little bit.
You don't become a world champion by accident. You have to wake up one morning and say, I want to be a world champion, and you got to find the path that you need to take, and you can't veer off it at all.
Only because I have the opportunity and I don't want to waste it. As a self-proclaimed Mcbeth fanboy, I gotta ask, what are your thoughts on people starting to compare your 2015 season with what Gannon's been able to do so far? I think it's insane, but I wanted to hear what your opinion is.
Go to 2019 and then try to compare.